This is Dr. Jerome Corsi. Today is Monday. It's September 11th, 2023. Thank you for joining us here at thetruthcentral.com. I'm on location today. I'm traveling this week, so I'll be moving around and don't have quite the setup. You can see with a very nice setting, very rustic setting, and enjoying it very much. So let's get into the news today right away. Over the weekend, there was this story that was breaking on the JFK assassination. There's a new book coming out called The Final Witness, and it's written by Paul Landis, who is a former Secret Service agent. He was he was part of the Secret Service detail that was in Dallas when Jack Kennedy was shot. And the remarkable claim that he's making is now some 60 years after the assassination. He's in his 80s, late 80s, I believe 88. What he's saying is that he picked up a bullet from the back seat of the limousine and put it in his pocket and put it on the stretcher after Jack Kennedy died in trauma room 1 at Parkland Hospital. And what the significance of this is that the lone gun theory framed Lee Harvey Oswald as the shooter. There were only 3 shots that were supposedly fired. That's what the Warren Commission decided. One of the shots missed. So they had to concoct how all of these wounds occurred for both Connally and JFK with only 2 shots that hit. The magic bullet was the idea that a bullet hit Jack Kennedy in the back, came up through his throat remarkably, and then hit Connally in his back, and then hit Connally in his leg and his wrist and his leg, and it ended up being a pristine bullet. Now, that's because the other shot that hit, they said, was 1 shot to the back of Jack Kennedy's head, and that's how he died. Because they were constrained by the number of shots, that they had 3 bullets found in the sniper's nest where Lee Harvey Oswald was supposedly shooting from in the Texas School Book Depository. So the way this was all framed, Arlen Specter, who was one of the attorneys in the Warren Commission, had to invent this single bullet theory, magic bullet, as doing all this damage and coming out pristine. Now, if a bullet was found in the car, because there was also a bullet found in Parkland Hospital, and it doesn't appear to have been the same bullet. If there were 2 bullets, then there were 2 shooters. Now, that's what the impact of this story is. And it's interesting to me because I'm coming out with a book with David Manick on the Kennedy assassination. We'll have it out before the end of the year, and I think our book is going to be a very, very well-founded book, and a book which will change the entire dynamic of how the Kennedy assassination is looked at. What interested me was this book got a lot of attention, and even the New York Times covered it. Even the New York Times, in covering it, said, well, this may change the narrative. They didn't say, of course, now we accept that there was multiple shooters or conspiracy to kill Jack Kennedy. They didn't go that far. But at the point that they were at least willing to cover it, and with Robert Kennedy Jr. running, this is going to be a hot topic through the remainder of next year. And the hard part about this story is that it's a recollection from 60 years ago, and there's no photograph of the bullet he found. There's no evidence of a bullet having been found. It's really on his word only, but yet it's getting a lot of attention. Now, I think that means to me that the American public is waking up to how much the government is lying. And we are now seeing through COVID, which I think was the main experience that largely woke up the American people. I'd rather see them being awake rather than woke. I think we need to end this woke nonsense. But the point is that if we can begin to realize that the government does lie, and it lies all the time. This is a government that has secrets. and national security secrets. Not all the documents are released yet on Jack Kennedy's assassination, 60 years after the fact. I mean, probably everybody is dead who was in any way adult and or very, very old. They're going to be in their late 80s or their 90s, and yet this secret is being maintained. I don't think it's going to last. I think people are going to become increasingly aware that the government cannot be trusted. And if you can't trust the government, this is not the United States of America. It's not what our founding fathers intended to establish. And I'm going to cover one more story that I'm going to ask Chris to comment. But this is called I'm following the Conservative Treehouse, theconservativetreehouse.com. We've got a very good article today. Sundance is the one who writes there. And he's looking at the post 9/11 weaponization of the US government. Now, the point was that the Patriot Act turned the intel surveillance radar from looking for foreign searches. In other words, the CIA was supposedly set up to deal with our foreign enemies. It came out of the OSS in World War II, fighting Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. So the idea that the Patriot Act shifted our entire intelligence and law enforcement apparatus to domestic concerns is a major issue. Then Obama and Biden have redefined terrorists to include political opposition. So now we're at a point where Donald Trump is got umpteen charges against him because the Democrats don't want him running for office again. But the point is what we've lost. We've lost a country where political opposition under the First Amendment was considered to be sacrosanct. You had the right to object. You had the right to differ. You had the right of assembly. You had the right to say the government was wrong. I had the right to engage in speech that the country didn't want to hear necessarily. But now we've got censorship, political correctness, and even the weaponization of the Department of Justice, where even to question if the 2020 election had been rigged, that's now considered to be a crime. That's insurrection because you want to overturn a legitimate election. What's happened is with this woke neo-Marxism, we've moved in a direction where if you don't agree with the fundamental Marxist line or whatever the government wants to propose, and this is now, you question COVID, you question climate change, you question 9/11, anything you want to question, you're suddenly in danger of being considered a criminal, or even worse, a traitor, which is essentially what they kept calling Donald Trump because he dared to say that Joe Biden stole the election. Now, Sidney Powell and the others attorneys who are, you can't even get an attorney. Attorney's supposed to be able to represent any client. I mean, John Wilkes Booth, had he lived, would have been entitled, shot Lincoln, would have been entitled to an attorney. Now, the attorneys who defend these people may get a lot of flack for it, but there's a right to an attorney. Instead of that, now, Sidney Powell defending Trump as a lawyer, his attorney, trying to say and challenge the election in 2020, now she is subject to criminal offenses because they're saying it's insurrection. Okay, now this whole thing, all these charges, for instance, that Georgia has filed against Trump, virtually fail if there's proof that the election was rigged or that there were various things that happened in the election that were improprieties. The vote was not legitimately counted. Then there's no case because it's true then that the election may have been rigged. Now, if we're not able to argue these points, we're not able to engage in a discussion on them, then we've crossed a line in the country and we are not any longer interested in the truth central. What we're interested in is the current government lies, current government secrecy, the current narrative, which is the neo-Marxist idea. You can have any narrative you want, and the only narratives they want are the utopian narratives of communism, that we need to basically disband the police. We can imagine a future, imagine a world with no boundaries, imagine a world with no God. John Lennon's Let's Just Imagine. Well, I think it'd be better off if we imagined a world without Marx, without John Lennon, and going back to the Constitution. Chris, your thoughts?
The Patriot Act opened a major floodgates, as you've seen today. The idea was it was very easy to say, hey, we got attacked. Now the government can take control of a lot of aspects of our lives without us even knowing it. There were very few uh, House members, and of course, a minuscule amount of senators who even voted against this whole thing. It was a virtual bipartisan effort to do this. Problem is, as I've said before, we talked about with the Democrats' nuclear option. You said this last week. There was no foresight. No one realized what another administration might do, and you had the Obama-Biden administration, and today it got even worse, redefining who's a terrorist. This is why you see them walking up in front and saying, these people are a threat to the country. These people are people you should be watching. Tell on these people when you see them. And you saw what happened with the FBI. They actually tried to consider very traditional Catholics who still use the Latin Mass as dangerous people in America and people who should be, let's just say, given an extra eye out to. This is true weaponization of government. That the floodgates opened with that Patriot Act.
Well, what happens is that we are now suspect as citizens,
right?
And we have to be surveilled. So that you have the NSA, which has the power, enormous powers, and we're going with everything electronic. We live on our cell phones, so we're now capable of being under surveillance 24/7, and in intimate detail. Phones, if you have Siri or whatever you have, the phone can literally record everything you say, everywhere you go, every penny you spend if it's digital currency. And mostly people are already using digital currency because most transactions in retail today are by credit card. They're not by cash. So we're going into a much more dangerous situation here where the government, which can't be trusted, which lies, has got enormous powers to suppress the truth.
But note how they're doing it. They did it in 2001 by rallying the people into a sense of patriotism where they can use it to control you. Let's say 4 years later and forward.
Because they do that, Chris, they do that with everything. They do that the same way. This is a disease.
Right.
If you don't let us control you, you're all going to die.
But now they're doing it through convenience. As in, this will make your life easier. Smart TVs, you can get any channel you want, and you can go on the internet, but they don't realize this is a channel for the government to keep an eye on you. Easy Pass, well, you don't have to give coins at your tolls anymore. You don't have to dig out cash. Well, now you have a picture taken every time you pass through the toll booth.
It's ubiquitous. It's all everywhere. Okay, and everywhere you go in. It used to be if you were in your own home, you were private. Today, with this technology, even your own home is under surveillance because
exactly.
So you've got, and we're doing it willingly. We're marching ourselves into the slavery willingly. Let's go on to the next story. I want to cover a couple more today that I think are critical. This is the that's a Newsmax. As soon as I pull up the article, it starts playing the clip from Newsmax. But the point is, we're going to make this new deal with Iran, Biden is, and we're going to take $6 billion of unfrozen Iranian funds, we're releasing $6 billion to Iran again, more money. And we're going to have an exchange of U.S., the nationals of Iran. We're going to release a bunch of them. They're going to give us some U.S. citizens that have been in Tehran's Evin prison, which is a horrible prison. And of course, our genius Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, has made the deal, which is going to put more money in the hands of the terror masters of the world, Iran, which is developing nuclear weapons, on the verge, I'm sure, of having one by now, because the the Biden administration, following what Obama has been doing, has been making deals with Iran, which do not rule out Iran having a nuclear weapon. They tried to postpone it, and they postponed it for quite a while. But Iran is patient, and when it gets a nuclear weapon, they're going to use it against Israel. I've been saying this. I wrote the first book on Iran in 2006. So I've been worried about this issue for going on to 18 years. Soon it'll be 20 years. I've been to Israel any number of times, talking with various people in the government, I've written 3 books on Iran, and it does not stop, because the Shiites in Iran they have an insane ideology, which is that there's this Mahdi, this descendant of Muhammad, who was going to be the head of Islam, but he went down a well and went into hiding. When he comes out of the well, it's going to be an apocalypse, worldwide apocalypse, and Iran will triumph. Now, once you get a country believing in an apocalypse and you get them to have nuclear weapons, they're going to probably want that apocalypse to occur. So this is another instance where we're appeasing countries that we should not be appeasing. And here you've got Obama doing the same thing. The whole hate America. I said when I wrote Abomination, said Obama is a Marxist, and his whole intent is to destroy America, to destroy the Constitution. And now this has taken hold to where Biden, a president who's obviously experiencing senior dementia, if you watched him at all in this trip to Vietnam, I mean, he was saying he was sleepy. The guy should never have done this. And they were putting him through senior abuse, basically, flying him all over the world to the G20 conference and then coming back through Vietnam for some reason or other. And it's obviously he's not running the government. Obviously, he should be parked somewhere and allowed to live the rest of his life in peace, except that the corruption is so massive. It's unbelievable. You can have Donald Trump, who wants to make America great, is indicted. First U.S. president to be indicted by his political opponent, which is banana republic kind of behavior. And Biden, with his massive corruption, no one does anything. I'm not even sure Kevin McCarthy is going to be able to get through the Senate. Get through the House, maybe a vote to impeach. But, the Senate, when they do the trial, I don't see any way that the Senate's going to remove Biden, despite the obvious corruption. All right, now let's go to one more story, which I think is equally troubling at 9/11 here today. This New Mexico governor who has decided that she's going to basically suspend the right to carry firearms. And she said that her duty to uphold her oath to the Constitution is not absolute. Okay, that's interesting. So she thinks she can rewrite the Constitution and negate the Second Amendment, the rights of Albuquerque residents due to rising crime to carry their own weapons. And again, this is another instance of these Democratic governors destroying, or Democratic mayors destroying cities. And if you're not allowed to have even concealed carry with licenses to do so, which has been part of the Second Amendment rights, then she's negated the Constitution. She just said it doesn't apply here in New Mexico. Albuquerque, you have no constitutional protections in Albuquerque. Don't worry about it. You can't carry weapons. And again, these are the overreaching of government to the point where we are now not just merely citizens, we are suspects to the government. And our attempt to live a life where you can't eat meat, you can't have gas stoves, you have to have electric cars. Well, let's cover the next story on electric cars. And if this governor gets away with this, It's going to be the beginning of other governors and others in the Democratic Party who want to get rid of guns getting on the bandwagon. So they'd have this caravan of cars going with Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm, and they're going to do a publicity stunt with these EVs on a massive government photo op, and to prop up the EV market, electric vehicle market. Now, the problem was this caravan didn't work very well. Her luxury Cadillac Lyriq. The Secret Service, of course, was there, but they had the SUV gas cars. So her advance team, they couldn't find enough plugs to go around. They found one station with 4 chargers that were broken. Others were occupied. So an Energy Department staffer tried parking a non-electric vehicle by one of the working charges to reserve the spot for the approaching Secretary Granholm. And a family that was boxed out on that hot day with a baby in the vehicle were so upset they called the police. And so the Energy Department staff had to scramble to smooth over the situation, including sending other vehicles to slower chargers until the frustrated family and the secretary had room to charge. Now, this is, again, a problem with these electric vehicles. They really do not work. And the idea of having them for 50% or 70% of all vehicles is going to be a disaster because the infrastructure is not there to support them. Chris, any comments? I think we'll wrap up a little bit early today because I see the activity is picking up here, and I am a guest, and I'm traveling this week, so let's put up with a little bit of not ideal situations. But any comments on the show today?
Absolutely. This stunt by the Energy Secretary was not only absolutely silly and a total, a true example of what will happen if the government makes a switch to EVs. It reminds me of that silly stunt what was her name? The girl, Greta Thunberg, however you pronounce it. She takes this ride to a climate summit in a sailboat, but it's followed by this huge yacht, and that pushed off the emissions that she supposedly saved. So the idea is we're going to virtue signal, but we're going to screw up all the air anyway, no matter what you do. That's what they're telling you. We're still the elites. We're still the ones that are going to take all the energy. You don't take any of it. That's what happens. Look, as I said before, John Kerry, he stated it. We're special. We can take the private jets.
Yeah, that's the way they think. And by the way, please support the sponsors here. I think we're getting, as September moves along, we get into October, the economic difficulties are going to become much more severe. And if you want to get a copy of this book I've written, which is The Coming Global Crash and how there's going to be a historic gold rush, please call the number, which is Swiss America. You can get a free copy of the book. And then talk to them. Make sure you get some of your retirement funds, IRAs, 401ks, get them into some gold.
That number, by the way, is on our website, thetruthcentral.com. It is also in the description. If you're listening to the podcast, you can find it in the description. If you're watching us on Rumble or YouTube, same thing.
It's 800-519-6268. 800-519-6268. And also, people see, you can see today my hair's gotten color back in it. I've not colored it. Try this My Vital C. This stuff is really remarkable. It's a miracle molecule, carbon-60, and there's hair growth products. It has longevity properties. You get carbon-60 in olive oil or avocado oil. There's a couple of different formulations of it. But this has only been discovered in the last 40 years. And it's antioxidant. It's available for pets. I really strongly suggest you try it. And we're in the process of launching some telemedicine. I've been in telemedicine now for about 4 years, and I've developed administrative software. So we're launching some telemedicine products and programs that we're going to be talking about very quickly here. Chris is putting one together with My Vital C. It's called GetLongevityMeds.com. That's one we're doing with My Vital C. We'll be doing another one that Chris is working on, GetRxMedsNow.com. Both of these will be launched hopefully in October. Dr. Jerome Corsi, and today is Monday, it's September 11th, 2023. I always say in the end, God always wins. God will win here too. And I encourage everyone, spirit of 2 Corinthians 7:14, let's repent, get down on our knees and repent that we've allowed this country to get to this point, killing millions of babies in the womb, taking God out of the schools, allowing this neo-Marxism to come on. This is the Truth Central, and we intend to continue podcasts every weekday, bringing you the Truth Central. Thank you very much for joining us. God bless.